Okay, so I'm Joshua Finch, and I am Ilene Dillon's humble assistant here to help with tech and communications. Ilene is here today, and we are proud to present Emotional Mastery. So this is her book, and she has coined the phrase emotional intelligence over 50 years ago, and she has tons of wisdom and tools and tips to share from her personal experience, helping thousands of people around the world find a connection to themselves through understanding their emotions. She's written many books and tools to use in everyday life. And today you get the privilege of seeing some. So here is Ilene. Go ahead.
Thank you, Joshua. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. I'm so excited about where I am. Can you do the next one, Joshua, please?
Sure. Do you see the one, what have I been feeling today, or is that the right one or no?
No, it's not the right one, but that's all right. We'll
Okay.
just do what we know how to do here. Um, Talk about technical stuff. The issue is not with Joshua, Mr. Joshua, it's with me. I'm not a technological native, a digital native, and boy, does it show when I go to do something like this. So I'm going to keep working at this. And the good news is that I know a lot about emotions and emotional mastery. And I want to start off by saying I did not actually coin the term emotional intelligence. That was Daniel Goleman, who has a book by that name. But I was very early writer in the field of emotional literacy. My first books, manuals for parents, came out in 1994. They were for parents to teach their children about emotions. And they were called like exploring anger with your child and exploring hurt with your child and so forth. So as we get started, what I want you to do is to really focus in on what emotion you're feeling now or you've been feeling most recently. And I've been talking about emotions ever since 1972, when I discovered that I was an angry person. We'll talk about that more in a moment. And I started off in the 70s talking to people about emotions, and everybody goes, "What's so important about emotions? Everybody has them, big deal." And so my work back then was to tell people, number one, emotions are important, and number two, this is why. And things have really progressed. And now we do know that emotions are important, but we still don't know very much about emotions. And one of the things we'll talk about today is we don't have an agreed upon definition of what emotions really are. So it's always important to just check with yourself. What emotion are you feeling right now? I was feeling trepidation. Now I'm feeling confident and good and happy. And so let yourself know that. Next. All right. Perhaps you've been feeling angry or afraid or calm or sad or on edge. I'm still working with therapy clients 1 day a week, and especially since the Hamas invaded Israel, people have been going off the rails with emotions. And of course, those of you who are uh, spiritually oriented will also know that there have been a lot of astrological and planetary changes going on. So all of this tends to stir us up. And a big part of the reason I want to share about emotions with people is that we can easily get knocked off our feet uh, with all that's going on. We can get to the point where we can't sleep. So Joshua, can you go to the slide where the people are sleeping in the bed?
Right on point. You got it. Just you can say
Okay,
next. I'm right where you're at. You were doing great.
okay. And people are having trouble sleeping. They're having trouble making sense. They're having trouble with their technology. But even more than that, we've got all kinds of issues with anger. We've got wars going on. We've got road rage. We've got shootings. We've got domestic violence. Uh, what's happening is that emotions are going out of control. And the reason they're going out of control is a very simple one, which we will talk about very shortly. So if you've been having trouble sleeping, if you have a lot of anger inside of you, or you're aware of being angry at the touch of a button, then one of the things I want you to know is that holding anger inside of us, which most of us have been taught to do, can actually kill us. We now have evidence, research evidence, that says that at least 3 major killer diseases that we confront here in the United States, diabetes, heart and circulatory issues, and cancer, have as one of their causative factors repressed anger. And I want to be really clear, it's not anger itself, it's anger we hold inside that is the culprit. So you can begin to see that it's really important for us to start moving emotions, to start dealing with them and not let them be held inside where they are creating problems and we don't even know it. Next. So a big part of the reason, and this will be not a surprise to anybody, is that everything is in the process of change. Everything is changing. Our weather patterns are changing. The level of our oceans are changing. The ways in which we talk to people politically is changing. The kinds of words we use, the kind of respect we show to ourselves, the amount of love that's available for people to share. Everything is changing now. So next, the question is, what is making life fall apart for so many? Well, I have a booklet. It's called it's about chaos, and it describes the process. As a therapist for the last 5 decades, I have helped a whole lot of people, plus I've gone through this myself, with the whole issue of making major change. And if there's one thing that I've learned both from my experience and from helping other people, is that when an individual goes through major change, the first thing that happens is there's some kind of precipitating event, like somebody dies, or you lose your job, or you're in an accident or something. There's a precipitating event. And all of a sudden, things start not working the way they always have. And up come a whole lot of emotions. They can feel like they're out of control. You can feel like you're going crazy. And the other key thing is that you can't seem to envision an end to what's going on. Everything's falling apart. You can't use the things that you usually use to right your ship to get everything to work effectively again. And so it feels like you're going crazy. There's no end to it. You're not able to get a lot of help, and you don't want to even be in contact with other people, even though normally you might stay in contact a lot. Well, that's the process of what I call the identity crisis process. And on a global scale, we have what I call the transformational chaos uh, process. Sorry. the transformational chaos process. And I do have a booklet on that. If you want to write me, Ilene at emotionalpro.com. It's on the last slide. You'll be able to see it. I would be happy to send you a complimentary copy of this because it's describing what's happening in our world. So we're going through the same process. Nothing's working the same anymore. And next, we don't know what to hold on to anymore. We don't, we used to maybe hold on to somebody who could comfort us. Maybe now that person can't even comfort us. They may need somebody to hold on to also. And it doesn't make any sense. And the things that we usually do, like, for example, we may work harder so we can afford the cost of goods. But when we've got the cost of groceries expanding, we can't keep up with it oftentimes. So what can we hold on to? Not our ability to make things right, not the fact that things will calm down and the world always worked this way. We don't have anything to hold on to. And so once again, we're feeling like we're crazy. We're not knowing what to do. We think things are going wrong and we're going to hell in a handbasket, and we don't see any end in sight. So that's what we're going through. And how in the world do we keep ourselves stable and feeling okay in the face of all of these changes? Now, just to tell you as an individual, what we really need to do is just let the changes happen. Just let ourselves feel the feelings. Just go through it. The principle is that on the earth, we have to go through something in order to get beyond it. So we have to go through the breakdown process on an individual basis. And now we're going through the breakdown process on a worldwide basis. And the ultimate result of this as an individual is that we change the basis on which we live our lives. Most people who go through this kind of change are people who learned to shape their lives to please parents and teachers and other people, so that by the time they grow up, they're not really who they are. And now in the world, we've shaped our lives on the basis of certain beliefs and assumptions and experiences and things we can count on in our environment. And we can't do that anymore either. So that's why everything starts falling apart, because the change is so great. Nothing is the same. We have to rethink, re-experience what's actually important to us. And I know you know from listening to news and reading things that we really disagree on what's important to us right now, because every one of us has to figure out what it is that's really important to us. Next. What hope do we have for writing things again? As an individual going through this process, we feel hopeless. And part of my job as a therapist has been to tell people there is an end. I've never known anybody to go through this process who hasn't come out on the other side. But you do it faster when you work with emotions, because of what emotions are and because of the fact that that's what comes up. And we'll talk about why that is. Let's go to the next slide. We're looking for how to stay calm and balanced. And the most important thing we can do is to connect with emotions and utilize those emotions to help us with our learning, with what we need to change, with what we need to look at. And while it is certainly not an easy process, it is a fairly simple process. And as I said, I've never known anyone, including myself, not to go all the way through it. But you have to decide that you will go all the way through it. So consider that as you move forward in today's world. Next, there are simple, effective things you can do. Next. And you already know about them. You have been aware of them at least since the moment you were born. And yet, we have not been taught to utilize what we want in a way that can help us, especially in the kind of emotional climate we're in right now, a world climate, state of change. All right. So what are these things? We need new ways to work inside of us. Now, one of the things I want to also point out is that most of us have been taught to live our lives from the outside in. If I want to be loved, for example, I go looking for love outside of me. Someday my prince will come. I will find love. Love will find me. That's living from the outside in. Love is going to come find me. Well, as a therapist for 5 decades, let me tell you, it doesn't work that way. If you go out looking for love, you're not going to fully find what you're looking for most of the time. Could be a fluke. Because life is more powerfully lived from the inside out. And what that means is what I have inside of me is going to be reflected from outside of me. It's going to come to me from outside of me because of this reflection. Plus, what I have inside of me, I own, I have, and I can therefore manage it and master it and use it and not be concerned that people will take it away from me. And when we get to talking about love in the next class, that is really key, that the way I find love in the world is to bring love into myself. And that's something that you can do and I can do. Next. So let me introduce myself to you for just a moment. Mr. Joshua, you look like a recovered angry person too on this slide here. I'm a recovered angry person. Something happened in my life in 1972 that made me suddenly aware that I was a very angry person. And prior to that moment, I had no idea I was. What happened was that my husband, at the time, I had been married very young, he and I had had a little child, and she was 10 months old, and he came home on my very first Mother's Day and said, "I've decided I'm not ready to be a father and I'm leaving you." Now, we've since worked it out, but at the time, that was absolutely infuriating. It undermined me. I brought up a lot of grief. I just exploded with emotion. But the emotion that I exploded with the most was anger. Next slide. And so at that moment, I became aware that I was an angry person. And that anger was just spewing out of me. And the only place it had to go was into my life, into my business as a therapist, over myself and over my child. And it was really awful. And I knew I could not do that to my child. So I started looking for, how can I find answers? What causes people to be angry? How come you get so angry out of control? Can you get rid of it? Can you stop it? What is it that's going on? Where did this anger come from? And I started looking for answers. Now, I had just gotten my master's degree from the University of California in Berkeley. So, of course, I went to the school's social welfare, to the reference librarians, and I said, help me find the answers to these questions. Those were pre-internet days. Well, here was the surprise. There were no answers to those questions. Why not? Because at that time, and even to an extent now, social science researchers did not separate emotions from diagnostic conclusions. If you were schizophrenic and anger was part of schizophrenia, then anger was part of schizophrenia, but you didn't know anything about anger. If loneliness was part of an alienation syndrome, then it was part of it. But we didn't know anything about loneliness because it wasn't studied. Well, those were not adequate answers for me. And I started looking. I went to group therapy. I went to individual therapy. I talked with colleagues. I read books. I took a spiritual awareness class. I took an Aikido class, just following anything that I was drawn to do. And fortunately, I got some answers. I got answers. I got the answers about anger that allowed me then to follow this progression. That first I became an angry person. And then when I was discovering these answers, I became a recovering angry person. And eventually, after about 20 years of recovering, I am a recovered angry person. And as we'll see, we can never get rid of emotions. So it's not that I don't experience anger. It's that anger used to take up a huge amount of my life, and now it takes up a small amount. So my progression has been from angry person to recovering angry person to recovered angry person. And that is what I'm excited about teaching the world when we talk about emotional mastery. Imagine your own life without with minimal amounts of anger that you can handle in 2 or 3 minutes and move on to something else. That's what I'm so excited about teaching to the world now. If I can get over being angry, anybody can get over being angry, because I was white hot angry, grew up in an angry home, had a very difficult childhood. You name it, whatever was present that could make a person be really angry, I had had it in my life. So let's go to the next slide. As I discovered all of this about anger, I realized that all emotions work the same basic way. So I actually found a system, discovered a system for how emotions work. And that's, I want to tell you some of the basics of that system today. First of all, emotions are designed to do a certain job. Each group of emotions, whether it's loneliness or fear or anger or depression, each one of these groups has a message for us, and that's its job to bring us that message. And that makes emotions helpers. It makes them a gift, not something we need to put away or be embarrassed by or hold inside of us so nobody knows we have them, but tools that we can use to change the course of our lives, to help ourselves stay healthy. Next slide. So emotions are with us lifelong. The age 0 to 7 is the time when we learn everything we know about emotions for the rest of our adult lives as we grow up. And interestingly, if we don't look at those emotions or examine what we've learned about emotions or look at the beliefs we've developed about emotions, we actually will continue the same emotional behaviors that we have done from ages 0 to 7. And I don't have to tell you, there are plenty of people in this world right now who are showing you that they are not older than 7 years old, emotionally speaking. Unfortunately, because we haven't worked with them and haven't known a simple way to work with them, then we don't know much about emotions. And I want to say something about the fact that I use the term simple all the time. I kind of had this idea this week that when I say to somebody, working with emotions is simple, it may diminish what I'm offering in that person's mind. And the reason for that is because we've all been told, I certainly have been told, we've been told that working with emotions like anger is really difficult, nearly impossible. And what if somebody comes in and goes, you know what, working with anger is really simple. Are you ready to believe me? What are you going to do with years and years and years of believing that working with anger is difficult? Well, I'm asking you to consider giving those notions that working with anger or any other emotion is actually difficult. It's actually very simple. That doesn't mean it's easy, because imagine now, we were talking about anger that we hold inside. What if we have years of anger held inside, and like me, it took me 2 years to get all that anger out of me, right? And I was working on it constantly. So what if we have a whole lot of anger or emotion? That is not necessarily easy, but what we need to do is simple. Next. So once I started finding answers, for example, I learned about forgiveness with anger. I learned I was really angry with some people from my early life, and I'd been, for 40 years, I held out on them. I was not going to give them the satisfaction of me forgiving them. And one of the answers I discovered was that forgiveness is for me, not the other person. Because when I don't forgive, I don't turn loose of the anger. So therefore, the anger is still staying inside of me. And the whole time it's in there, it's growing. And anger is the most active emotion that we have. And it's constantly doing damage to me when I'm holding it inside. So at the age of 40, I decided to forgive. And once I tried something out in my own life, I was a privately practicing psychotherapist, so I would go and work with somebody and they would have a similar issue to one that I had worked on. So I would offer them the opportunity. I've learned something here. Would you like to try this to see if it would work for you? And so my hat is off to every person I've ever worked with over the last 51 years who said, yes, let me try it. And things changed for them. So I enlisted those people to try things out, and we discovered that the things they were trying actually worked. Next slide. They really worked. And one of the things that really brought this home for me was in 2020. I wasn't alive in 1920, thank goodness. But I might have enjoyed it, but I'm happy to have been born when I was born. So in 2020, COVID hit. And I had already closed down my office. I had bought an RV and had set off for North America to travel and write and speak and enjoy my life. And I came to my son's home in Northern California to wait out COVID, and people started tracking me down and they started asking me for a checkup. Some of those people I had worked with 40 years earlier. And what I discovered was that the work we had done with emotions 40 years before was still working for them, was still a part of their life. They were not coming for a redo, they were coming for an exploration of what new had been coming up in their lives. So that gave me a huge amount of confidence that this stuff really works. I knew it worked for me, but when I started having lots of people contact me and found out that what they had learned about emotions was still being effective, it had made their lives work well for them. They were still using it. They still remembered this. Interesting. I teach a lot through stories, and so they still remembered a lot of the stories. So the systems that I discovered really worked. Next. And I call it emotional mastery. And I submit to you that it's an approach, unless you've worked with me, it's an approach you have not learned. Because we still believe in this culture, in this world, that working with emotions is difficult and that we don't know how to do it. So the best we can do is manage. We can manage anger. We can manage fear. There are things to try. There are ways to meditate. Now, a lot of these things work really well. That's not an issue for me. If you use tapping or you're using meditation, okay, these things really do work, but do they last? And my experience is that most of what we are told to do with emotions and about emotions and working with anger does not last. It doesn't last. It's something that works for the time, for the situation we're in. And then once we move on to something else, we have to visit that over again. All right. And so I'm a person who hasn't had a lot of patience. I was a single parent. I was running my own business. I didn't have a lot of time to mess around. So I started looking for answers and ways of behaving with emotions that would work and would stay in place and that I didn't have to keep repeating. And that's what I have to offer you now as well. Next. So there's a background that we need to have in order to understand emotional mastery, and that is to realize that you and I and everybody here on the earth is in school. Our earth is a giant school. We come here in order to grow and develop. And one of the wonderful things that we really learn to explore here in the world, if we give ourselves a chance, is the emotion of love. Love is the most powerful emotion. Anger is the most active. Love is the most powerful. And so what does this mean? It means that whatever happens in our world as we're living in it is offering us opportunities to learn. Now, the earth is a concrete environment. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful school, lovely campus, but it's also a concrete environment. And what do we mean by concrete? We mean that we get immediate feedback. We get very fast feedback. And you know, the sooner you get feedback, the more, and you accept it and you work with it, the faster you can grow. So Earth is designed as a concrete environment. You say something that offends somebody, you take an action, you don't see a stop sign when you're driving, you're going to get a reaction from your environment, from the people in your environment. You're going to be in an accident, or you're going to slam your brakes on. Something's going to happen so that you get feedback about the choices that you've made and the things that you've said. And that's really important because Earth is a big learning environment. Next. So how do we, let's go to the next one as well. How do we learn in this environment? We have experiences. Every experience we have is an opportunity to learn. All right. So I have an opportunity today to learn that I need to enroll in a computer class in order to deliver an even better experience to you and to others with whom I want to share this material. And I had the experience of things not working well today. And fortunately, I also had the experience of having wonderful Mr. Joshua, who is so creative. He's going, well, no, let's try this another way. Well, let's try this another way. Thank you, Mr. Joshua. I really appreciate that. So every time we have an experience, it's an opportunity to learn. Now, you don't have to learn the lesson right then if you don't want to, but Mother Nature is very, very interesting. Sometimes we get presented with something we know, oh yeah, I need to speak up, or I need to change this, or I need to fill out that form, and we set it aside and it appears to disappear. But as you know from living your life, it doesn't actually disappear. Once a lesson has been presented, it comes back again and again and again. And every time it's presented again, it's a harsher, more painful lesson. Now, here's something I've discovered about us human beings over the last 50 years. We do not like to change. And learning something involves change. So here's the crazy thing that I discovered as a therapist. Most people dislike change so much, they will sit in these repeating patterns where the pain is increasing all the time until the pain of where they are is so great, they think it couldn't be any worse if they make the change. That's how dedicated we are to not making change. And so one of the things I want to encourage you and everybody I can possibly tell is that life is a lot happier, it flows more smoothly, and you have less pain if, when you have an experience, you set about as soon as possible to learn what it's trying to teach you, because you won't build up all that pain. Next. There we are talking about resisting change. And how it increases our pain. All right, next. Here's the good news, though. The instant the lesson is learned, it is over. And this is Mother Nature's way of encouraging us to learn the lesson. So if we accept that we're in school, we realize that when we have experiences, we are being offered an opportunity to learn, and we don't resist it, and we move to learn the lesson, then it'll be over, and it won't repeat, and it won't repeat, and our pain will not develop in the same way. So next, how do we learn what that experience is trying to teach us? Well, there's such a simple and wonderful situation that has been set up for us. We have emotions. We have them from the moment, at least the moment that we're born. We have them our whole lives. Even if we're demented, we still feel emotions. All right. And these emotions accompany our experiences. I'm frustrated that I didn't know more about working with the computer. I'm angry that somebody told me what to do. I'm hurt that I wasn't given credit. All right. So I have the experience of not being given credit. I feel hurt. Hurt's bringing a message to me. Anger's bringing a message to me. Now, in my book that you saw the picture of on the page at the very beginning, Emotions in Motion, there are 12 emotions listed with the message of each of those 12 emotions that you can find and use on Amazon. And so emotions are the key to figuring out what our experiences are attempting to tell us, what they're attempting to teach us. And so we need to know what emotions are attempting to tell us, and we need to work to apply them in the experiential situation that we're in, because those emotions are messengers. They're telling us, look here, you'll find the answer, you'll find what you need to change. Next, emotions are messengers and helpers. Next, let's just look at the message of loneliness very quickly here. The message of loneliness, we usually think that loneliness occurs because we don't have enough people in our lives, or we don't have somebody around right then. But you can feel lonely in a crowd. You can feel lonely in a marriage. So having somebody around is not the key to dealing with loneliness. Instead, the message of loneliness is that we have more of our energy going out than coming in. And loneliness is telling us we need to bring energy in. And there's a very interesting other way of saying this: more energy going out than coming in means we're not being loving enough to ourselves. We're sending our love out to others. We're paying attention to others instead of loving ourselves. And we need to bring energy in. So the next time you notice you feel lonely, ask yourself, am I sending more of my energy out in the world than I'm bringing it in? And if you find that that's so, what do? You start doing things you enjoy doing. Literally, things that are a talent of yours. And a talent, when I was learning this, I was told that a talent is something that I do that other people go, oh, that's so wonderful that you can do that. I wish I could do that. And my reaction is, oh, anybody can do that. That's a talent. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be singing, hiking, doodling on a piece of paper, dancing, reading particular things, teaching people. It doesn't matter. Just do something that when you do it, you get lost doing it because it's a talent. So now let's look at what emotions are. And this is a big thing. Even now, if you go on the American Psychological Association website or the American Psychiatric Association website, and you write definition of anger, it doesn't really give you a definition of what anger is, right? Because we don't agree on what emotions are. Now, on a cultural level, we do. Ask anybody, what are emotions? Oh, they're energy in motion. They're emotions. In the popular level, we accept it, but officially, we don't. However, when we see emotions as energy, it simplifies everything. And why does it simplify everything? Next, because we already know something about energy. And energy and emotion share the same rules. Got that? Energy and emotion share the same rules. So we already know how emotion will operate if we just look at what we know about emotions, about energy, excuse me. So next slide. We know that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. We can't get rid of it. And the same is true for emotions. We can't create anger or get rid of it. Okay, what can we do with it? We know that energy needs to move. Think of water, think of wind, think of electricity. Give it an opportunity, give it a circuit to operate on, and it moves. That's what it wants to do. And we can't get rid of it or we can't create it, but we can harness it to do work. Energy and emotions. Next. And a particular energy can transform into other forms of energy. For example, we can take water and run it over a dam and attach it to a transformer, and we can take water energy and transform it into electricity. Excuse me. And anger, for example, when we transform the energy of anger, it turns into enthusiasm. So when you deal with anger in your life, you become a more enthusiastic person. You're able to express enthusiasm, to get more involved in life. We also know that energy can be destructive when we hold on to it. That is, if I put water behind a dam and it builds up, say, into a lake, that water, because it's energy, keeps looking for any flaws in the dam. And if it finds even a small flaw, that water can start moving through and it's not corrected, pretty soon the entire lake can dump right through that flaw and be incredibly destructive to the countryside below the dam. Anger works the same way. We tend to hold on to anger. It's constantly moving. It looks for our weak points, whether it's a gallbladder or a problem you have with understanding yourself psychologically, or I don't know, an organ in your body that cancer can attack. Anger, when we hold on to it inside of ourselves, builds up, and it's constantly looking for the weak point. And when it finds it, it can go in and be incredibly destructive. And I really want to impress upon the world that holding anger inside is the worst thing we can do for ourselves. We'll do a whole course on it, to which I invite you to attend. But it is inside working to kill us without us even knowing it. And it's time. And take a look at the world and all the ways that anger is showing itself. Anger has gone berserk. It's becoming very, very destructive. And we need to know more about it, and we need to get in charge of it. Next. So what is the path we take with emotions? First, we have an experience, and then we accept the presence of emotion, and we help them to move by partnering with them. We go, oh, what is the message that you're attempting to tell us that I need to apply? So let me just give you an example. Suppose you're going down the freeway and a driver cuts in front of you and you feel angry. All right, so what is the message of anger? Anger is telling you that you believe that a driver should not cut in front of you on the freeway. Now, is that realistic? How many people, what percentage of drivers on the freeway actually do cut in front of other people? I laugh because women often tell me 35 or 40%, and I've had men tell me 100%. But somewhere in that range, certain number or percentage of people are going to cut you off on the freeway. And if you continue to hold on to the notion that that should not happen, you're going to keep getting angry. And anger is a powerful energy that can affect you negatively. So isn't it better to look at the reality? The reality is that a certain percentage of drivers on the freeway do cut others off. And when that happens for me, I go, oh, you're part of the 35%. I forgot it was you. And when I do that, I don't get angry. So I'm assisting the emotions to do work for me so that I don't constantly get angry over something that happens all the time. And I keep thinking it shouldn't happen all the time, but that's, wishful thinking. Next. So we want to assist emotions to transform and eliminate storage and buildup of those emotions. And what we want to do instead is to use them for the message that they characteristically bring to us. So here's a process to work with emotions. Number one, recognize and allow the emotion. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad. I'm afraid. And also, because emotions come to us through our bodies, where in your body do you feel it? Think about loneliness and put your hand on the part of your body where you most often notice you feel lonely. Okay, I'm putting mine right above my solar plexus. Some people put it on their solar plexus. All right, so we want to recognize and allow the emotion, identify where it is in the body, and then identify or look up the message of that emotion so we know what we're looking for in our experience. With the example of the freeway driver, I'm looking for an idea that I'm holding that's incorrect. Okay. And anger, the anger energy tells me that. Okay, let's go to the next. And you need to allow your heart and your mind and your body to respond. This is what we're designed to do. And when we let ourselves know what's going on emotionally, then we have access to the emotion so we can do the learning that's being set up. So then we want to identify and resolve the lesson. And they can be all kinds of things. And when you first start out trying to identify the lesson that an experience is bringing you, you may say, oh gosh, this is just too complicated. I can't figure it out. But we can ask for help. You can say, please help me to identify what it is that I need to learn here. I can ask myself, I wonder what I'm asking myself to learn by having this experience. What do I need to learn here? And I can ask myself, right? And the more we do it, the better we get at identifying what it is that a particular lesson is attempting to tell us. Now, there are some lessons that go on for years. I had a lesson that started when I was 2 years old that I did not complete until I was nearly 60 years old. So I had it for about 58 years. All right. It had to do with me belonging in a family. I was neglected and allowed to roam the streets as a child. And so a lesson was set up in my experience that I didn't learn until I had experiences with other families when I was close to 60 years old. So they can last a long time, but generally, these experiences we have are brought up by some deeper part of our own selves, and they're tailor-made for us. They may be tailor-made for a group of us, but they are tailor-made for us, right? So once you identify and resolve the lesson, it's time to take a rest, to appreciate yourself for figuring it out, to be grateful that you've handled something that you don't have to keep carrying around, and then to move on. And let's do that next. What else do we need to know about emotions? One is that emotions are not bad or negative. I saw a gauge listing all kinds of emotions recently, and the announcement said that positive emotions were on the front and negative emotions were on the back. Well, my learning is that there really is no such thing as a negative emotion, except emotions like anger that we allow to build up inside of us. That's when they become negative. But to say that energy is negative is like water is bad, water is negative, wind is negative, because those are energies. So they're not bad or negative, they just are. And each emotion has a message for us. Secondly, is emotions don't belong to us. Most of us say, my fear, my anger, my pain. All right. Now, we've been talking about the fact that emotions are energy and that energy needs to move. So, what do you think happens if you say, my anger, my fear? We tie that energy to us when in fact we want to allow it to move through us. So instead, I recommend saying things like the fear I feel or the anger that came up in me. Now, I'm still working on this myself because we certainly have been trained to claim emotions as, my feelings. Well, they're not. They're the feelings that I feel in a particular situation when my experience is offering me to learn something. So let me just, this makes it easier to work with emotions if you stop claiming them as your own personal emotions. Next. So all of this is leading me to an opportunity that I'm very excited to be able, finally, I've been offering this material since the 70s, uh, but I'm finally able to offer a comprehensive understanding of all emotions. And it's really important now because the changes that we're going through on the earth are actually leading us to live differently in the world. And one of the big ways we're going to be living differently is by noticing and inhabiting and being our energy selves. And clearly, when emotions are energy, that means that we are going to be working with and living with and experiencing with emotions. And so it's time for everyone to learn how to put themselves in charge of emotions by developing what I call emotional mastery. And a group of us were sitting around thinking, what is the first thing we really want to know? Which emotion is the most important one? And we concluded that it's love. Love is both a set of skills and an art, but also love is the most powerful emotion that we have. And when we are full of love, life goes better and we can learn more completely and more easily, and we can stay more balanced. So we have decided to offer in our upcoming opportunity, offer course on love. We want to start with the positive. And so the course is entitled Open Your Heart and Life to Love. Open your heart and life to love. Next. We all have issues with love. In my life, I didn't have enough. Maybe you had too much. In my life, some of it was taken away. Maybe too much was given to you. It's really hard, but we all have issues with love. And sometimes we love others more than we love ourselves, which leaves us with not enough for ourselves. So we all have issues with love, and that's part of what we'll be addressing in this course next. And so with the holidays coming next, I want to be able to help you awaken the love that you may be missing, to discover how to get into a constant flow, to open the door to having more than enough love in your life and setting it up in such a way that you have more than enough love for the rest of your life. Next. It's a 3-session course, and we're really emphasizing helping you to open yourself to increase love that you experience, that you feel. Second, to discover how to keep love safe for you, how to keep love available to you all the time, and also what it takes for you to experience increased love from other people. And these are really key. And we're going to talk a lot about self-love also. Next. Once you have mastery over love, it cannot be taken from you, and it grows and it lasts. So what a wonderful place to start. And we're looking for special people because I'm actually opening the door to teaching about all the emotions, starting with love. So I'm looking especially for people who are ready to transform their lives by developing emotional mastery, by realigning themselves with emotions, by learning to utilize emotions to resolve the issues and conflicts and challenges of your life, and to increase your ability to resolve such things very quickly and have the kind of love that or life that you want to have in and one that's full of love. So also in this class, we're going to learn simple tools. Again, simple tools, because they help you to stay neutral but strong, whether you're dealing with love or hate or anger, and love is the best place to start with. So now I want to introduce you again to it's hard to say, Mr. Joshua, that you are an assistant, but in this mode you are. But Mr. Joshua was introduced to me a few months back, and he is a very unusual person who teaches what I have come to understand is a masterclass in emotional literacy for kindergartners. And he's doing some genius work. A lot of it he brought through himself, and now we're able to do some collaboration. But Mr. Joshua, I'd like it if you would come aboard and tell people about signing up for the emotional mastery course in love, please.
Great, excellent. So I believe you can only hear my voice because I'm sharing the picture of all the stuff that I work with. So I appreciate You, Eileen, thank you so much for the opportunity for me to be here to support you and for bringing this information to all of the world and to our communities. And no coincidence that I was drawn to you. And when I found out about you from my friend Jason, he was like, you guys got to meet. And of course, now here we are sharing some love. So, and it's 1 hour and 11 minutes. How cool is that? 11 kind of deal going on. Angels with us. So, just a little view. I'll jump on here so you can see my face, but I want you just to see what I'm looking at. Is I actually began my self-love journey like 7 or 8 years ago. Then I was a teaching artist in a nonprofit, and I started learning that I could use my art to share my heart. And at the time, at the nonprofit, they were saying emotional intelligence, we don't have that in elementary school. Kids really need to know about emotional intelligence. So then I started doing that, but then I noticed the parents and the adults needed it too. So you could see I have some online stuff. And now I'm snuggled in at a Montessori school where I'm teaching kindergarten masterclass, which is a program that I learned from Tammy Valuers, one of my mentors. And she's been working on building safe learning environments for children to basically learn peace and emotional intelligence, and to grow education into a peaceful environment versus a chaos one. So that's what I've been doing. Is I have online videos, and I go in person to the Montessori school, and I collaborate with other people to share emotional intelligence and tools. So again, I'm super excited to hear what Eileen has to offer, and that's why I'm here to support her, because it's always an never ending thing just to keep learning more as we start to accept that energy is here and it's in the form of emotions, and that we can now use it and learn it and use it to help our lives first, self-love, and help our children and our families, and help our communities, so that way we can live a little bit more in love. And love is definitely an action. So that's where we're about, is we want you to take action. So I'm going to click to the next slide, and you can see that coming up tomorrow is going to be a deadline. So we want you to today fill in a questionnaire. So we'll also send you a email to get you registered for this course. So it is a paid course, and that you'll leave with all the tools and what she mentioned already with love. And yeah, we'll notify you on the 25th, if that's still the correct date. I believe it is. Thank you, Eileen. I see your head nodding. And then it will start on the 29th of November. And that'll be 3 sessions, November 29th, or December 6th, and December 13th. And that will be 1 to 2 Pacific time, 4 to 5 Eastern time. But again, you will get all this in an email. But really what we would love to do is to have you do a survey to make sure that you're ready and you're the right fit to get into this class. So that's what I'll ask you to do. So right here is her Eileen's email and her website, but let me find the link to send to you so you can go ahead and do that right now, just in case some of you are eager, because last time we had people do it right on the link. So Eileen, if you want to share a minute while I get that link, and I'll put that link in the chat, and then they can start to fill it out.
Okay, that's really wonderful. Yeah, like I said, I'm actually sure that every single person that has signed up for this course today is a very special person. However, I created the questions so that it gives me more of an idea of how I will be focusing the courses on emotions to actually what I'm interested in doing. This Sunday, I'm turning 81 years old, and I'm dedicating the end of my life, for however long it goes, and I'm thinking I'm going to be around here for a little while, to teaching everything, sharing everything that I have learned over the last 51 years about emotions, because it's brought me to a place where I'm no longer angry. I spend precious little time getting over emotional issues. I don't do fear. I don't do worry. I haven't been depressed in years, et cetera, et cetera. It's not that those things don't happen, it's that they don't linger, they don't stay. And it's time for all of us in this world to come to the same similar place where we get to live our lives, we get to experience joy, we get to experience love, we share positively with one another, and we don't spend our days listening to news of war and manipulation, and which, by the way, is another form of misusing energy. We don't have to listen to all of that, because we're going to be living in a love that we co-create, one that is full of love, because we're full of love. We send that love out, that love comes back to us. We have extra, we give it away. That's what we're wanting. That's what I'm wanting to do. And it's time. And I feel so very privileged to be able to share what I have learned and what I know works. So please consider signing up. We'll start up on the 29th. I've been having a lot of fun creating the slides for that presentation, and I'm going to learn how my computer works between now and then, so it's an even better presentation. And by the way, I'm going to forgive myself for not having known already, because I did the best I could with what I knew at the time, which is all any of us can do. So, Mr. Joshua, how are we doing?
We are doing great. So I put in the chat, Nancy and Rennie, maybe, if that's how you, Renee or Rennie.
Rennie, yes.
Rennie,
Rennie.
perfect. Okay, if you want to just click on that, it'll open it right on your computer, and you can just go ahead and fill it out. And then you'll have your responses in there, and they'll immediately get to Eileen so she can review them and make sure she gives you the best custom kind of ideal. And of course she'll tell you more, but we'll send it out. But you can go ahead and get that started by just clicking on it in the chat.
Right. And so the next to last slide, Joshua, is if you have any questions of me, Eileen at emotionalpro.com. And if you wanted to know more about me, I have a website, emotionalmasteryforlife.com. So I want you to know about that. And we're working on now an audio version of Emotions in Motion, but on Amazon, there's both the paperback and the electronic version if you're interested in getting the information on the 12 emotions and what they're attempting to tell us. It's very, so it simplifies things. So I'm excited to share those. All right, well, Mr. Joshua, I think we have come to the end of this today. I just want to tell all of you on this class right now that last time we did a class like this, the outstanding character that people commented about was Mr. Joshua. And there's a reason for it. He is a man who's full of love and gentleness and consideration and wisdom. And he has developed this on his own. He didn't take my class. I'm just supplementing him with some more information. He developed it himself, which gives you an idea. We can all develop these things inside of ourselves. But I feel very fortunate, Mr. Joshua, to have you participating and working with me, and in this case, supporting me. Thank you so much. And until next time, thank you for being here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for doing this for all of us. And I appreciate your words. And it comes to the people that we put ourselves around. So like, put yourself in this container so you can be around other people that are learning these things, that you're going to be there with Eileen. You can possibly be there with me. And that's how I grew. That's how I learned how to use the things that all these people that I seeked. So I wanted self-love. I went out and took action. and I found people that were doing stuff as me, and I picked it up along the way. So don't wait, and let's get you learning some tools, and we're all set.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful to have you present with us. Thank you, Mr. Joshua.
Thank you very much. Rennie, you can say something if you like. Go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you both, and I will look forward to more info.
Oh,
Awesome.
good.
We're
All
so
right.
glad you came.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.